Good morning, everybody. We look more like a person today. Do we feel like it? Only barely. We're gonna set up to film like the main segment and the main topic today. But as we do, let's kind of chat. How's this angle? That ain't bad, but I need my mic. Hold on. All right, now you'll actually be able to hear me as I'm puttering around. So this week is, thank goodness, turning into something very easy to tackle as I am dying. I was supposed to have a client that I usually work with outdoors. I ended up reaching out just with the weather. I was like, look, I'm sick. I don't think I should be outdoors. I was then also supposed to have a physical therapy appointment. I canceled because I don't want to get him sick. I was also supposed to have an in-person client at 1. She actually canceled because she is also dying of whatever plague this is. And then I also canceled my final client of the day because she's in person and she's also like 7 months pregnant. She does not need to be getting this right now. So honestly, now I've got a nutrition client and a virtual client today, and that's it. All right, so the main discussion point we're gonna talk about today is actually Miss Gwyneth Paltrow. We're actually not gonna like harp on her too much. We're just kind of using her as like a jumping off point. Now, I'm sure that we've all heard of Gwyneth Paltrow, whether it's from the Marvel Universe to Goop. She has left quite a mark on society. And today we're actually gonna talk about that time in 2015 when she tried something called the Food Stamp Challenge. This is actually quite similar to what I'm doing. So I thought it would be interesting to look at how she approached it and kind of talk about the things that I would do differently because she did end up giving up after 4 days. All right, we're in, got the tissues. My best friend right now. So we're gonna be referencing 2 different articles that the Washington Post actually wrote about Gwyneth embarking on this challenge. And the Food Stamp Challenge was essentially taking the monetary equivalent of food stamps and using that as your budget for the week. And this ends up being about $29 a week. So actually, a little bit more than what I'm giving myself. So in the article, it says that Gwyneth only made it through 4 days. She personally broke and had some chicken and fresh vegetables, and in full transparency, half a bag of black licorice. Side note, do we remember during the pandemic when Gwyneth had like a breakdown because she was like, I had bread. Rich white lady problems. And she does go on to say in this quote, my perspective has forever been altered by how difficult it was to eat wholesome, nutritious food on that budget, even for just a few days, a challenge that 47 million Americans face every day, week, and year. 47 million Americans live on a budget at this or similar to this. This is why we're doing this. How many more times can I say this? So the article goes down and it does start to kind of critique like Gwyneth's choices. So what I want to do is actually look at it together, and we're going to talk about some of like the glaring mistakes that I think she made and how I would actually go about this instead. So the biggest thing, and I think that this is what everyone pointed out, why do you have so many limes? Why are there 7 limes there? Honestly, this whole thing just looks like we're making tacos, which is great, but like that's not gonna last you the whole week. So I think that's mistake number 1. I think also just like these added little things, like I guess this is cilantro, the green onions. Honestly, I don't think that you have that luxury when you're on a budget. You gotta like rely on a go-to sauce. You gotta rely on the spices in your cabinet. Like having these fresh herbs, these can really add up when you're on such a small budget. I will say that I do like where she's going with the black beans. Getting them bagged is actually gonna be a much smarter use of your money rather than just getting the cans. Same thing with the rice. I like where she's going with that. The frozen peas. So all of these options are going to be a little less costly. You're gonna be able to stretch them a lot longer. They're also more versatile ingredients, which we'll get into in a second. So things I would have done differently, I would have gotten a few more sweet potatoes. I would have gotten another protein source, ideally some chicken, but honestly, like I would get whatever's on sale. I would shop the sales. Instead of this ear of fresh corn, I would have gone more the pea route and gotten frozen. Honestly, I would nix the avocado. They're just gonna be way too pricey on your budget. Like in New York, you're gonna pay like $2 for an avocado. It's not worth the money. I would have gotten cheese because duh. Maybe I would have tried to get like some frozen shelled edamame, because here's where I'm going with this. Adding in those things and nixing out the things that I don't think are super versatile or just like not cost effective. Then you've got the ingredients for a Mexican dish. You got the ingredients for a stir fry. You got the ingredients for like a Buddha bowl type of thing. You've got ingredients for breakfast tacos. Like it's gonna give you just a lot more versatility. Now I don't want you to get this wrong, because maybe just looking at this and me saying it out loud made it seem really simple and easy. It's the opposite of that. It is still incredibly time-consuming and challenging to shop the sales to figure out what you can actually purchase, to put all of these different ingredients together in strategic ways to stretch your food as long as possible. I mean, there's a lot of strategy that has to go into this. And to be honest, you don't really need to have that strategy when you're rich. You know, the other thing to think about is that if we look at what Gwen shows, the nutrient density is definitely high, but as far as like the caloric density of a lot of these foods, it's gonna be really low. So even if we're getting in a lot of like vitamins and minerals and nutrients, is it gonna be enough to sustain us throughout the entire week? In that article, it actually estimated that this amount of food would end up being like 1,000 calories a day, which is not enough for a human being. And you know, with how expensive something like fresh produce can be, I mean, we saw this week, I'm still really pissed off about spending $10 on 3 heads of romaine lettuce. That is absolutely insane, because the overall caloric density of $10 worth of romaine lettuce is gonna be way less than something like $10 of Pop-Tarts or $10 of microwavable breakfast sandwiches, or something that's just gonna be so much easier and more filling and less time consuming than 3 heads of romaine. I just think that we need to understand that there is a really big disparity in who has easier access to nutritious items. And a lot of that does come down to your income. Let's like blow that up even further, right? I know I'm going like tangent, but I think that all of these are really important to discuss. So if you have a higher income, you are more likely to live in a place that has lots of different food options. And within those lots of different food options, you probably have things that are more affordable. For us in the city, we have Trader Joe's. For me, I get my groceries delivered from Aldi. But traditionally, if you are someone who lives at a lower income, you probably live in a lower income area. Many of these lower income areas have more spread out options and have less options. You know, it's hard for me to even comprehend living in a city, but there are people who live in the country who their closest grocery store or access to food is something like a 7-Eleven. So a lot of people aren't even exposed to the option of fresh produce. And look, like I said, I'm not using this as an excuse to bash Gwyneth Paltrow. Like it's a whole different video. It's more about like a jumping off point of a bigger topic. It's easy to eat healthy when you're rich. It's harder to eat healthy when you're not. You know, it's harder to make those nutritious food choices when it's more work. When you have to do strategy, like I just showed you with your meals. When you need to travel to actually find nutritious options. Maybe you rely on public transportation. You know, all of these things play a huge factor. And I think that it's just very unfortunate that people struggle to keep themselves healthy simply because of the food choices that they have in their area. So that is exactly why we're doing what we're doing this month. Okay, so we're gonna continue with the day. This is the most human I've looked in the last few days, and I don't have thumbnail shots for the other 2 videos yet. So I have to do that and try and trick all of you to imagine that I took those on the first 2 days. It doesn't matter, but I've looked like a mess. All right, aside from that, I have something I have to film for social media, a little functional Friday for my Instagram. Then we'll make lunch and I will show you what I'm choosing today. Lighting is not great, but we're gonna make this short. I just wanted to check in on how much money we raised on the first day. I do know that I already had someone, I forget her name, Melanie, Ashley. I'll put it on the screen, editing Justina, donated at the tier 1 level, so she did get a free month of the Fit Club. So far we have raised $204. That ain't bad on day one. Fun. All right, guys, so I'm gonna sign off, take a shower, take some NyQuil, go to bed. You know the drill at this point. Tomorrow we're gonna talk all about the basics of nutrition, and I'm gonna answer specific questions that you guys submitted. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I will see you all tomorrow. Good night.